everyone. I'm Melory Johnson, 25-year beauty veteran, consultant, and strategist. Welcome to Pretty Equity, where we tackle the real issues facing beauty founders and investors and bring you the answers from the experts behind the deals. The global beauty and personal care market is projected to be roughly 600 billion in 2025, making it one of the largest consumer sectors in the world. And yet, one of the most disruptive forces in the market isn't innovation, isn't technology, or even price. It's dupes. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Dupes didn't win because they're cheaper. As you're about to hear, they won because they were clearer. Today's conversation is about why that happened and what brands can actually do to protect themselves. So I am thrilled to be joined by Jennifer Canon, a founder and NPD whose perspectives on dupes wasn't formed from trend reports or post-mortems. It was forged in real time, building, developing, and selling beauty in environments where value had to land immediately or it failed. Jennifer, thank you for being here. Before we dive into dupe culture, I want to ground this conversation in where your perspectives come from. You've had a very different path through this industry than most people talking about dupes today, which is why I'm so excited to be talking to you. And one that spans product development, brand building, and high stakes live selling, where performance is measured minute by minute. Can you walk us through that journey so the audience can learn a bit about who you are?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Thank you, by the way, so much for having me. So I've been in the industry probably more years than I'd like to count. And I grew up that way. My mom started a business. She had her own beauty line, so I grew up around that. She was, in the fragrance industry, so I was involved with that as well and working in her store. And then later, I was very fortunate to start with a company that was really at the very top in the electronic retail, we called it at the time, in that world. And they were on QVC, and we started with one product, and that product was a hand cream. It was a patented polymer, and it exploded so much that we were in pretty much, everything. We were multi-category at that point. And doing that through live television, I think, and product development, I think is really what's shaped my career, and understanding what makes brands, relatable, trustworthy, what makes products sell dollars per minute. And that was what we had to do, was sell the dollars per minute. And even though this is back in, the late 80s and the 90s, what was happening then is really relevant very much today. It's only in a different environment, like the TikToks, the whatnot, YouTube, Instagram lives. So I think it's very important, and it's shaping dupe culture. It used to be to dupe was to dupe a color. Now we're saying that we dupe a full brand, or a full product in skincare and hair care, and it's just become so over the top. So I think what I like to do is just help people focus in on that, and then shape going forward. How are we going to combat that from happening to your brand?
I love that story. I just think it's so unusual to meet somebody who has your kind of background. But now that the audience has a sense of where you came up in the industry, I want to shift to what that experience taught you. You recently wrote about a dupe culture, about dupe culture in a LinkedIn post that caught my attention. And in it, you said something that really resonated with me, that dupes didn't win on price, they won on narrative. I'm
Yeah.
presuming that the high stakes environment you came from helped shape that belief. Am I correct in presuming that? And why do you think that lesson is being completely missed in today's beauty market?
Well, I think so. What happens is these influencers will go on and they'll attack based on price. So, for example, we'll see like a top name brand like Poor Clarence has been picked on so much, and I love their product. I think we've talked about how much we love their product in the past. And they'll be like, oh, this one, has one ingredient and it's so much better. But they match, they're similar because they have the same ingredient. And it really, it doesn't matter. When you're in a live selling environment, and if you've ever watched like QVC back in the days or the Jewelry Channel, people are still buying and spending hundreds of dollars on an item. It's more about trust and the perceived value. Do they believe they're getting the value for what you're presenting to them? And I think where, to really look at it as a whole, I think what's really changed is the whole price issue. It's really about price, and you have to say, we're not different because we are a more luxury or a premium brand. Price really doesn't matter, in my opinion. I think both can be sold.
No, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this whole thing on price, I feel like we're living in a culture right now of like throwaways. Do you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Because you can get
Yeah,
it cheaper. You know what I
right,
mean? Like no one cares so much about quality anymore
right.
or what's going on, like why something is special. And I
Mhm.
feel like we live in this bumper sticker culture. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Where everyone is saying the same thing, everyone's talking the same way, everyone's
right.
buying the same stuff, and no one's really stopping to think, you know what I mean? What does it take to be an original? Like there isn't any originality anymore. Anyway, I don't know if you want to react to that before I move on, but you know what I mean?
Sure.
This is what I notice.
To me, what I noticed especially is instead of the brand, and I know some we get involved with the influencers and we'll give talking points. We can't tell them what to say. And they are creators, so they get to go and create their own content. But where we've really, I think, lost the story is, they've taken it to where they can pick one ingredient and say, this is exactly like the product that, you desire to have, the expensive one, and it's not true. And I think nobody's really explaining how not true that really is, and how different, each product really is, and how hard it is to actually, we can reverse engineer, of course, but it's still not going to always be exactly the same.
Okay.
Uh,
And
I
Jennifer,
think,
hold that thought because we're definitely coming back to this. But
okay.
something else that I thought was interesting is that, in the type of environment that you came from, that HSN QVC environment, it didn't just teach you how to sell. That
Mhm.
environment taught you how customers decide. And I think
Yeah.
that plays a part in what we were just talking about.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a lot of people back in my career, when I said I was working with the very top, we were like I said, the biggest, and we pioneered this. We even broke sales records of 2.4 million in one product. And back then that was a lot of money. We had a big drama in the company, and it was my ex-husband who was running the company. He was, removed from the company. There was a whole big drama. And from that, I went on, the former CEO of HSN asked me to develop him a product line because he was so famous in the industry. So I did. And the reason this is relevant is because when he went back on air, he couldn't sell it. And I was like, this man was magic. He used to be able to sell anything. What happened here? And it was, I would think to myself, when the founders are gone, the magic is gone. And I didn't want that to ever happen to maybe a client of mine or to something that I was working on. This bothered me so much. So I was kind of forced on air. And, they were like, well, you'll do it. And I was like, I can't sell. And I went on, and I could actually hear my heartbeat. I was feeling like the audience could hear my heartbeat. It was so uncomfortable. So I went back, and I really thought I'm never going to be able to do this again. But Billy Mays gave me this nice pep talk. I don't know if people remember him, loved him, and he really helped me, really find my voice in it. And I had some training with the great Bob Sarcosta, and it really, I started to understand what it is. It's trust. People want to be able to trust you. And you have to believe in what you're saying. So if I'm holding up something and I just, have nothing great to say about it, that's going to come across. And that's when I started to see, it's really about storytelling. That is a true thing. And if your story isn't relatable to the person watching, and they don't feel that connection, then, it doesn't make sense. So I think that's what's so easy with this dupe story. Everyone would like to save a little money. So if I could hear, yes, this dupe is going to help me save money and I don't have to spend $300 for this product, then there's the hook. But the truth is I think when people really look, they're not really seeing the changes that they were hoping to see. And when you add up what you're spending on it, it really, really is over the top. So I think that's really, an important part of the whole dupe culture, and
Hmm.
what really helped drive me on to understand what it is that makes people purchase, and, how do you prevent this from happening to your brand?
Absolutely. And to me, I mean, that's exactly where your take on dupes really diverges from, mainstream conversation. And with that said, anecdotally, Was there a specific moment? Because I know that you've mentioned a few moments now, but one that particularly stood out to you from those early selling days that you wanted to share with your audience, to use as an anecdotal example.
Um, I guess probably will, when I went on air and one of the products I think I mentioned to you turned out to be what I thought was a disaster because of the way they filled the product and on air, we were live, so you don't get a second chance. And seeing what that looked like. But because and it was like not perfect. And when you obviously when you also are in product development, you want everything to be perfect. But having to be in that moment where perfection was lost, control was lost. And I loved the product so much that it really didn't matter. And I was still able to deliver the story and do the dollars per minute. I was doing $10,000 per minute. Back then, that was, fabulous. So it again drove home the point of it is really, owning the story. And, the dupe culture thing, I think, has become so fascinating for me to watch. So there's just so many things that I see happen with it. And, I really would like to see brands or future brand owners be able to from the beginning, take control of that narrative and make sure that it doesn't, spin out of control.
Hey, that's the reason you and I are having this conversation. And you're 100% right. It really, really is interesting. Let's watching this whole thing play out. But before we continue with the conversation and take this further, I want to just pause here for a moment because a lot of people new to beauty think dupe culture is a smart shortcut. The logic goes, why spend time and money developing something new when I can just reverse engineer what already exists? It
Yeah,
feels faster, it feels cheaper. On the surface, it feels lower risk. But the
right,
reality is that dupe culture isn't actually damaging just brands, it's
right.
damaging the industry. From
Yeah.
your perspective, Jennifer, what does dupe culture do to the standards of the industry, not just to margins and brand equity?
Well, I think it's kind of destroying it. I'll give you one example. This one's funny. Early on, one influencer in particular took diaper cream and was telling the audience to put diaper cream on their face and that this was a dupe for benefit, pore minimizer. And so,
No, I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you and say I can't.
yeah, I can send you the
Okay,
video.
all right. You know what? I'm just going to zip it. I'm going to keep my thoughts to myself here. Sorry, carry on.
So, so they have their level of creativity, but we should not lose ours. When we're creating, and anyone that wants to go and develop their own brand, they want to create. Don't lose that. Don't be afraid because in today's environment, it is very hard to stand out on the shelf. I think a lot of the consumers out there are now starting to say, "Hey, we're sick of this." And there's a lot of back end things I could tell you about for another conversation. How that whole influencer range works. And people are starting to wonder, why am I seeing so many different people in my feed all saying the same thing and I'm not getting results? Or everyone's selling the same thing and I'm tired of this. So I always say, if you're going to make your brand, you don't have to do anything too crazy, but you want to keep the creativity there. And if you want to have that safety net to say, hey, I want to reverse engineer, you can still do something like that without actually reverse engineering. You can say, like your benchmarks, oh, I want this, I want this, I want that, and take the attributes that you love the most and then work with someone that has the industry experience in product development or with the chemist. I mean, I personally think it's better to work with somebody that really knows like things that you do, things that I do, and we can really help people understand, hey, this is how you're going to stand out performance wise and
Mm.
really build your story.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. So I just want to pivot here for a second because, I want to talk about how we lost control. Because I
okay.
think what's happening here is prestige is over-indexing on the wrong defense. When
Yes.
brands start thinking about how to protect themselves from dupes, I see a really consistent pattern. Most
Mhm.
instinctively reach for the obvious defenses, like you just said, higher price points, a new hero ingredient, premium packaging, or in
Right.
some cases, legal action once the damage is already done. And
Right.
while those things can matter, they're often treated as substitutes for something deeper. Because the
Mhm.
reality is, none of those elements on their own actually make a brand defensible. A
Right.
better formula doesn't protect you if no one understands why it matters. And I
Right.
think you mentioned this, Jennifer, in one of your past anecdotes. A beautiful story doesn't protect you if it's not grounded in performance.
Right.
And legal action almost always comes after the narrative has already taken hold. So the
Right.
real question is whether a brand has strong is not whether a brand has strong R&D or strong marketing. It's
Mhm.
whether those things are aligned. And that's what I believe creates the space for false equivalence. And
Right.
that's exactly what you were just talking about. You know what I mean? Let's reverse engineer it. And
Mhm.
this is the space I think where dupes thrive. With all that said, Jennifer, where do you think prestige brands miscalculated? And what did they assume would protect them? In other words, from your perspective, where
Mhm.
do you actually see brands getting this wrong? And what should they be focused on instead if they really want to be undupable?
I think, well, they probably believe like, oh, well, we're so and so. I mean, even look at like the Birkin bag, and again, this is, I'm not talking about beauty, but it's the same concept. They're probably like, oh, well, we're Birkin. And then Bethany Frankel came along and talked about a bag, I think it was the Birkin, that everybody said, oh, this is like the Walmart Birkin, and it went viral. And I think that there's a big misconception in it's like being like, oh, well, we're it. Well, no, that's not enough anymore. And it's not going to be your super innovative packaging. I mean, that can be exciting for a little while, but know that if you're relying on super great packaging, someone, and this has even happened to me, they're going to go and they're going to make something similar and maybe even improve upon it. And then, then you're just stuck with, oh, I've lost my story because my packaging isn't unique. And I think that's the big problem, with bigger brands. I think they don't realize that they have so much to talk about. And it's just not being strategically explained like it should be. And a plan has to be put in place. You can't rely on somebody that, is a content creator. Yes, they're creative, they're wonderful, but you can't have them driving your story. And you really need to go and look a full 360 of the company and really build the story of, hey, this is who we are, this is what we stand for, and really dive deep. And there's a lot more to it, but that's just sort of like a overview of why I think they need to start to change how they're doing things.
Yeah, no, I really do believe that a lot of these brands have just lost control. They've just lost control of the narrative altogether. And like I said, I think that's where the dupes sneak in. And I mentioned it a little earlier from the lawsuit side. We look at cases where like Sol de Janeiro, for example, with Emco Beauty or Charlotte Tilbury and Tarte settlements. But are those reactive moves missing the point? Because it seems to me that the difficulty in these cases lies in proving equivalence after perception is already set. In other words,
Right.
by the time the brands are fighting in court, the narrative has already taken hold.
Yeah, yeah, and the damages. And I mean, poor Charlotte Tilbury, and I absolutely love her and her brand. And when she came out with that innovative concept with the putting the blush on, which I just used today, it was really hard to watch, it being like it's everywhere now. And again, that happened to me. I created some packaging for a client. It was innovative, and the next thing I know, I saw it and other suppliers had something very similar. And it's like if you don't go in there and, do all the patents, but it's once it's copied, it's too late. So I think she probably learned it's not just about the packaging anymore. I think she's taking control of her narrative, and I see that in a lot of the changes in her marketing. And here's another good example. Sorry to go off topic, but I was very interested, and I did another newsletter about it, about her taking over I think it was one of the cheerleader teams. And I had seen so many videos on TikTok about Estee Lauder double wear. They all used to wear Estee Lauder double wear. Of course, they had to stop when Charlotte Tilbury became, the partnership with Estee Lauder, with Charlotte Tilbury. So for this cheerleading team, again, I wish I knew which one it was. I think it was Dallas. Maybe it was the Dallas Cowgirls.
I-
Um, and
mm,
and I thought to myself, what a missed opportunity. Instead of Estee Lauder jumping on that, Charlotte was brilliant and she did it. So it's to me, she is now driving the narrative. She's not waiting for an influencer to, fingers crossed, come up with something so creative that you have a viral moment. She's actually working on creating her own. And she's a perfect example of what brands need to do is take
No,
control.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, like I said, that this whole thing of taking your control back is so
Right.
important.
Yes.
And there's a debate I hear all the time. Things like if our formula is good, right,
Hmm.
we're safe. If our
Right.
story is strong, we're safe. But in reality, like you're just saying, it's more layered than that.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
another question for you. Where do you think brands actually become undupable? Is it in the R&D? Is it in the marketing? Or is it, I don't know, something else entirely?
I think because things have changed so much, and customers are so much smarter, the consumer is very educated now, because they've been trained now. Look for this ingredient, look for that ingredient, look at the before and after pictures. Um, I think, I think that's really what's the most important thing. I'm sorry, I think I lost track of your question. Can we go back on that one?
It's fine. It's just,
Okay. I'm
what
not
I was trying
copied
to
yet.
do was no, but I mean, no, you didn't lose track. You're absolutely on the right track because
Okay.
the question becomes about where do you make it? How do you become undupable? Is it in the R&D? Because the idea that, oh, we got a great formula, so we're safe,
Yes.
or is it in the marketing? Oh, we've got a great story, we'll be fine, or is there something else that makes you undupable? Because
Yeah.
I don't agree that it's in the R&D or the marketing. So I was
Right.
just
Yeah.
hearing your perspective.
It really, and it's interesting because I took this course with Gary Vee, and he really covers this well. It's everything. It's the total package. It's building the trust. It's them, liking the packaging. It's them believing, what you're saying, the before and afters, and I think this is where QVC HSN is actually going to win this, in the end, because everybody thought that QVC was done, that maybe they're not going to be able to do it anymore because TikTok has taken over. And the truth is, to even step foot on QVC or HSN, this is one thing that's really great about them. It's difficult for brands, it's very painful for us. But every single thing you say has to be proven before they will even let you get on air. You're basically only allowed to say, "Hey, my name is Jennifer. Hi." That's it until you
And
have
can you
proven
can but
everything.
can you prove it, Jennifer?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really what the customers want. They want to know, am I being told the truth? Am I being lied to? And I think right now there's this moment where they're starting to question, what's been going on, and are these dupes real? I'm not seeing the results I thought I would. Yeah, I saved money, but then when they think about it, they really haven't saved money. And I think it's going to be everything. It's going to be your marketing, your product. Look at Bobby Brown. And I think Gary Vee must have been behind this because she just came out with the Jones
Jones
Road no
Road,
name. No
Jones
name.
Road.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
has a no name product. And it's brilliant. It's called Working Name. And that's brilliant because the name doesn't matter. When you hear her talk about this product and what it does, I wanted to buy some. For a little while, an influencer had said some things about her product, and it made me think, oh, okay, that's not for my skin. And because I'm actually a customer too, even though I'm in this, like I can be sold just like anybody else. And then I saw her talking about this working product, and I'm like, oh, I have to have that. It was the features, it was the benefits, it was the story. It was the story about it being working name. I was like, I love this working name. We do this all the time. So it's really the whole package. And I think it's taking, like I said, a look at every single component that you've got involved in the process, about the brand, how you made it, who, why, what's in it, what it does, the proof. I think it just all comes together, and it's going to be very important. And that's why I think I believe that QVC will be the one winning in the shopping network world, moved to TikTok, because now with these new regulations coming and the changes, they're already ahead of the game, because
Mhm.
that's been their thing for all these years. And now it's just getting the creators, and they have handpicked creators that they want and that are working with them that are now selling. They're going to be doing the same thing and using that style. And I think that's what brands are going to have to catch up to, is being able to learn how to do that.
So, you mentioned something here, and I'm glad you brought up Bobby Brown, but there were two things that caught my, you know, got me thinking here. The one was, QVC is going to win. And what keeps standing out to me, and then you mentioned Bobby Brown, is do you think that the person has something to do with it? In other words, you're there on QVC, you're live, you can't fudge who you are, right?
Right.
Because everything is happening in the moment. So your personality, the trust that you're building with the audience is real. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's not pre-recorded. You can't go back and change anything.
Right.
So it's you, it's the person that they're connecting with, right? They
Yeah.
believe you. Like when
Yes.
you're
That's
speaking and
important.
you're telling them this, and this about the product, they believe you. First of
Right.
all, I think they have trust in, the platform, QVC and HSN, they feel is not going to lie to them, right?
Right. Right.
And you've
Trust.
already said that their backbone is prove it. right? If you're going to say it, this better be true. You better
Right.
have, better back yourself up, right? So they already believe that the platform, the place it's coming from is a place of truth.
Mhm.
Now they're believing you because you're the person talking to them, and
Right.
and they're believing you because they're looking you in the face and they're saying, you know what, this person sounds believable. So, on the flip side of that, you take the celebrities, right? And you brought
Mhm.
up Bobby Brown, who is technically a celebrity. I mean, she's been around since what?
Yes. Oh,
Oh,
forever.
forever. Sorry,
Yes.
Bobby.
Well, it's a good thing. She's iconic.
But she, you know, is it the fact that, Jones Road, the no name or working name, is it her? Is it because it's her? Is it because it's what she's saying? Because then you look at other brands that just are not making it, even though they have marquee or celebrity names backing them. They're
Right.
just, it's like the audience, they're losing their audience. And this is
Mhm.
the part where I'm getting myself a little confused because it's like, are people becoming as savvy to the person, the name behind the brand, as they are to the ingredients in the brand? Do you think do you think that's something?
I do, but at the same time, if you handed me a couple of different products, I could sit here and pretty much sell any of them. If I had to like them. If I don't like them, then I'm not even going to try. But that's really interesting about what Bobby Brown has done because if you think about it, it reminds me of my ex late husband, or if I got that reverse, late ex-husband. He when he went on, the magic was gone when he went to go on and try and sell another brand. But with her, she was able to just say, oh, well, my contract is up. I can come out of retirement now because Estee Lauder, I think, was that had acquired Bobby Brown, and I'm going to make something new. And I'm on Jones Road. I think that's, I read in an article, that's how she named the brand. And the magic is there when you see her talk, and she talks about, and this is the key part for brands that they need to know. She's talking about why, what drove her to make this, what's in it, what's different, because we all have, the ingredients to work with, but I think it's how we blend them and what we do, and it becomes magic. And I think you can hear, like this blush balm that she has, and I'm sorry that I don't know the name, but there's magic in that story. What's in it, the castor oil, and it was like, castor oil is so trending now, and it's like, wow, this sounds fabulous. So she's able to do that, and yes, trust is important, but so is building a community. And I think that's what brands, they already have it. The big luxury brands have the community. They have all the pieces. I think they just need to kind of put the pieces together to make it a whole puzzle and hit all points, just like she's doing. And she's able to do it with each brand. So yes, it's the person, but I think if we took her out of Jones Road today, she could go and make, Jones Avenue and it'd be just as famous and just as wanted. So I think it's really doable for all of these brands. It's just making sure that, you're bringing that magic into your story, which obviously they've all put the work in. When you read and you look at some of these things that they've done to create each product and the thought process that went into these ingredients, like even Chanel with the vanilla plant, and we all love Chanel. There's so much to tell. They're just not doing it. And they're letting other people just, it's about applying and look at how pretty I am. But it's so much more to that. And I think that's why I keep saying I think QVC and HSN, because now they're one again. You're just going to see them really. I think they're going to keep excelling forward. And then also some other things are going to happen. I think some big changes.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you is because your experience, I think, stress tested everything we're talking about long before dupes became a social phenomenon. Because what strikes me most today is that the TikToks of the world have recreated what seems like, and I think you did touch on it, that same high stakes pressure, but with absolutely no discipline. So
Right.
brands are now being judged in seconds again, but many don't control the narrative the way that you had to. And
Right.
that feels like the opening that these dupes exploit. You sold beauty live on HSN and QVC, where performance is measured in dollars per minute, literally.
Yes.
So, what did that environment teach you about clarity and value? And can you share a moment where you could actually see in real time what happened when a product's value landed clearly or it didn't?
So it would be interesting, like we would be standing on the set and I would be able to see, this is back then when we had, the phones with the wires. You could see on the screen if you said something, the phones would light up. And I would have the producer talking in my ear and I'd be next to the host. And what was so interesting to me was getting behind there and then realizing once, that whole nervous, I don't like being on TV thing disappeared because then it really didn't matter. I was really just, having a happy conversation like now. Watching that happen and watching, I could say something that I never thought would be interesting to somebody or make the sales really, fly. And it was the most interesting little things. So, and then saying something that I thought would really matter to the customer, and then seeing the sales were flat and nothing happened. So that really, I think, taught me a lot as well. Well, it really did. I mean, so many different things that, just being yourself and talking about the brand and really showing that you truly cared. That's really what mattered the most in the end that I took away from it.
Mm.
And saying those things that you think people want to hear, those were the ones that fell flat. And I think we're in that fall flat now. We're heading there for some brands because they're hoping that they're going to have an influencer get them that viral moment. And instead of worrying about that, now with the new regulations coming, and the way QVC is going to be really the lead here, I think brands need to prepare for that and change their narrative now before they fall behind.
So many years ago, when I
From the
was in sales,
dinosaurs.
when I was in sales,
Oh, I was thinking the dinosaurs, not you.
no, we don't need to talk about how old I am, but all right, okay, let's move on. Um, but yes, when I was in sales, I had a great mentor who once said to me, "Passion sells."
Yes.
It's the passion that sells. You've got a story, fine. You got the ingredients, fine. You got the formula, fine. You got the brand, fine, right? You have an
Mhm.
audience, right? You're Clarins, you're Chanel, you're Armani, you're whoever you are, right? You
Right.
already have an audience. But why are you not selling? And their whole thing is that it's the passion. You're missing the
Right.
passion because passion is what sells the story. Like you said, if you don't believe it, you're not going to sell it. And
Right.
I don't remember what it was that made me think. You said something that made me think of this, but I don't know if you want to react to that.
Sure. What I'm seeing when I watch these influencers, they come in tight on their face and their skin looks perfect. And I'm sure they've put oil and everything else they needed to, before they went on to really make it look perfect. And they've had moments where they can edit. And, they do some lives, yes. But when you're looking at what they're doing on these, they're like kind of like an ad, technically, these little clips that we see. And it's like they have the passion because they look beautiful. Yes, everything you're saying is true. Look at how beautiful this looks. Don't I look gorgeous? My pores, you can't see it. And they believe all that. But now that things are changing and people are like, oh, I want to see proof, I want to see that this is really going to do what it says. I want to see the statistics. I want to look at the before and afters. I want to spend some more time. We're going to need more of that. And I think the influencers bouncing around from every single product I've used makes me look gorgeous because they're paying me to say so. I think those days, like I said, I think they're going to change. And I think, people are going to really want that trust, that community. The passion, of course, helps, but I think it'll be the whole package that they're looking
No,
for.
no. And I think authenticity has something to do with that too.
Oh, for
You know what I
sure.
mean? Especially like, the more I watch these influencers, and I'm not talking about the top 1%. I'm talking
Right.
about, the general. To me, they all even look the same. They'll sound the same. They look the same.
They
I
do.
can't even tell them apart anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And they're all, hoorah about this and that. And so which one are you hoorah about? Because you've just shown me five, you
Yeah.
know? But what's striking to me is that talking of TikTok, platforms like TikTok and dupe-focused apps. I want to get into the app thing here now.
Yes. Yeah. Isn't that a fun
Have
one?
created that same split-second judgment environment that we had been talking about, but without any guardrails.
Yeah.
Now, the decision happens even faster without context, without explanation or proof, like you were saying with with QVC and HS the home shopping network HSN. That they need proof. That was part
Right.
of the backbone of the platform is the trust, right? And then you've got these apps, you've got these platforms, and there's no explanation, there's no proof, there's no context, and that
Right.
vacuum is now filled with comparisons. Oh, well, this is cheaper. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So from your perspective, how do influencer cultures and dupe-driven content apps accelerate the narrative collapse, especially for brands that never clearly owned their value to begin with?
Mhm. Well, for me, these apps are very fun, by the way. But when you go and you read, I mean, there's really not that much that makes it sound like they really are truly dupes because they're not. And I think people are starting to figure that out. So I think that collapse is coming. And I think that brands now have a great opportunity where, they can say, all right, well, we're going to start to change the narrative. And I think it's been fun. Like I said, I don't think those apps are going anywhere. I think even they are going to need to improve how they're doing it. Instead of saying, "Oh, yes, we've just picked random product B because it has glycerin." So they have glycerin and so do we, and you should try it. And it's like the public doesn't really understand, like, that's not enough. And I think another way it's going to collapse, and this has been talked about a lot, is unplugging is now becoming the big thing where we want that experience again. Like back when I was a kid, going to the mall, it was it. I know everybody's saying, "Oh, Sephora kids, bad, bad. We don't want to talk about kids," but it was kids. We would get that first pimple and we were like horrified, and we would be running to the mall, looking to the beautiful women or anyone there that we thought was attractive that we could relate to, help me. And I think that's going to be what's coming back is this experience. And that's another thing that brands can really take control of,
And
is,
you know, I think that's an interesting point you just brought up, the in-person experience.
yes, it's
Because
coming
everything
back.
we've been talking about right now has been on a phone
Right.
or on an iPad
Right.
or whatever it is, on an electronic device, right? But I think there is something to be said about the person to person, human to human interaction. Like you
Yes.
said, the going to Sephora and finding, the pretty assistant who you think, oh, she's so pretty, she must know what she's
Right.
talking about.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
but
Yeah. And that's
it's okay. The point
yeah.
is you're looking for that human interaction.
You really are. And this happened to me actually. There was this man, he was very striking, a young man. And I went in and I was looking for something crazy. And he was like, "Why do you want that?" It was like purple. I wanted to put purple under my eyes to conceal some of the darkness. And he was like, "No, no, you don't need that. You need this." And it brought to my attention that we really need to appreciate them more. And they should be, I think, personally believe, compensated better, because they are really driving sales. And I know that at one point, I think Sephora was saying, and it's actually very funny, that woman Artemis at Sephora, she actually unfriended me at LinkedIn. I bothered her so much one time over a brand I wanted to get on Sephora. Hi, Artemis, I love you. but but I saw that she wanted to focus on having more influencers instead of focusing on the people in the store. And it's the people in the store that if we talk about a dupe, they're going to tell you. And they know, like if you say, "Hey, I want a clearance dupe," they'll flat out say, "There is no dupe for this, or this is, feel it, try it, and see, and put it on your skin." And I think that's all gonna be very important right now going forward. So I think some of these dupes are gonna struggle.
Look, the dead honest truth is that you can't really 100% reverse engineer anything anyway. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
It's not
Because you're looking
100%.
at an
Right.
ingredient list, right? You're going off of an ingredient list. So to your point earlier, yes, you're reducing everything to an ingredient.
Right.
But
You may as well
truth,
buy the ordinary. They're reduced to an ingredient.
yeah.
If you feel that strongly and you believe, and I personally don't, but if you as a customer feel that strongly, or you as someone creating a brand, and you're like, "Oh, well, I want to make the customer happy," look at the Ordinary's business model. They've had some really interesting stories in their beginning and where they've come to now.
Hmm.
And I call it like single note, single note skincare. It's like single note fragrance. So, you could do it that way, but we have so many great ways of creating fabulous products now and things to choose from, and I would really hate to see people lose their creativity. I think the copying, it's boring already,
And it's lazy. It's
Yes,
just lazy.
yeah, and it's fake.
It's
It's a lie.
Yeah. You know what? It's lazy. But again, like I said earlier, it's just people think it's less risky or it's cheaper or whatever they think is their way to break into the industry. It's you know what I mean? But I don't think they really understand that it's way more nuanced than that. But at this point, my guess is a lot of the founders in our audience are probably thinking, okay, fine, I get the problem, but what can I actually do about it?
Mm.
Because undupable isn't about outspending, out yelling, or chasing the next trend ingredient faster than everyone else, which is exactly what we were just talking about. What is it? What can brands actually do about it, Jen?
Well, if they're new and they're just starting their brand, I would suggest don't worry about making 10 different things. Narrow your focus. It's actually even okay to just start with one. And you don't know, maybe that's not your hero product, but what's the difference? Start with one, get it out there, start testing, and it's really important. And I don't even believe you need to spend on ad testing in the beginning. I think you can put it out there and start to talk about it. But if you're in the product development phase, I would tighten the focus. And I would make sure that all those pieces that, when you're on like a shopping network, the proof, each raw material, like be behind it, test it yourself, see the performance and make your story different. And it will be different because, it's your story. And tell that story. Why did you get into it? Just your whole story from A to Z has to be part of the brand. It can't just be, oh, we were funded, so we started a beauty brand. There has to be so much more to it.
No,
And I think that has
absolutely.
to be established.
And I also do think though that your authenticity, your personal story, your lived experience can't be duped. No one can dupe that. Do you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
exactly.
That
Yeah,
is something that entirely belongs to you. So use it.
right.
From what I've seen, there are a few places where brands either quietly protect themselves or unknowingly expose themselves. Because at this point, I want to just talk about how, carry on down the road about, how brands can become undupable. So at this point in the conversation, I have no doubt that a lot of our audience listening and watching are probably thinking, fine, I understand the problems. Dupes thrive in ambiguity, narrative matters, blah blah. But what does that actually mean for them practically? So, Jennifer, drawing from your experience in building, selling, shaping products under real pressure, if you were advising a founder today, anyone coming in new, what would you tell them to start doing now if they want to build something that can't be easily reduced to a comparison chart?
I think building the story, like we discussed, is really so important, and that looks different for everyone. It could be, oh, well, I had a skincare problem, I had a skin issue, and that's what drove me why I'm so passionate. And I found that, mixing these ingredients helped me, and that's what inspired me. So whatever your personal story is, and it'll be different from everyone. But there's not one product that we're all going to love. So there are people out there that are going to relate to you, and that could be, $100 million brand. It really could. But if you don't put that work in of really differentiating yourself from everyone else and telling your true story instead of, trying to just, I see so much, it's like, oh, they did it, we'll do it. And I really, that to me is not necessary. It really isn't. You could still become viral. You can still become a huge brand, and you can do it just by your story. What got you there? What's best about your product? Why it's great. What are they going to love about it? And then, working with the influencers that are going to respect that and honor that and bring it out to the audience. And I think, that's what we need more of.
Mhm. As Jennifer just explained, dupes don't win because they're better. They win because the original brand left room for simplification. When meaning is clear, aligned, and owned early, duplication loses its power. That's what makes a brand truly undupable, as Jennifer and I just discussed. Remember, dupes thrive in ambiguity, but brands win when they own their meaning early, clearly, and without apology. And if something can survive live television with no safety net, like Jennifer did, it can survive comparison culture too. Jennifer, before we close out the episode, do you have any last thoughts or advice you would want to share with the audience who may be founders or investors themselves?
Sure. Well, investors, that could maybe be another topic for another day because I have so much to say on that one. But the truth is, everything is undupable. Everything is different. You could put 20 formulas, even if they were all reverse engineered by 20 different, formulators, they're all different. So just tell your story, and you don't have to follow what everybody's doing. You can definitely lead your own way. You don't have to be like everyone else. And I think that's important for people to realize that you can still make it without having to please everyone and try and work on, oh, this is what's trending now.
As you just heard, innovation and IP matter, but they don't protect a brand on their own. A patent no one understands doesn't stop substitution, and a novel ingredient without proof doesn't create loyalty. What actually protects brands is alignment. When innovation, performance, and narrative move together, and the value is communicated early, clearly, and without ambiguity. Because in beauty, defensibility isn't built by hiding behind complexity. It's built by making your value impossible to misinterpret. That's the difference between being copied and being truly undupable. And that's where long-term brand equity is actually built. Well, that'll do it for today's episode. Jennifer, thank you for being here today to share your experiences and insight. It was an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. I had so much fun. I hope it was insightful and that maybe somebody get something out of what we said.
Absolutely. And for those watching and listening, if you found this video valuable, please like it, share it, and subscribe here on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also follow me on LinkedIn, where I share more expert insights on the issues and answers that drive smarter beauty investment. I'm Melory Johnson. Thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you all next time.